The sound of typewriter keys echoed through the modest Vienna apartment as Dr. Viktor Frankl pressed each letter with deliberate precision. It was 1940, and the young psychiatrist believed he was documenting the future of psychotherapy, a revolutionary approach he called logotherapy, the healing power of meaning. The manuscript, thick with years of research and hope, sat beside him like a faithful companion. He could smell the ink drying on fresh pages, feel the weight of discovery in his hands. But outside his window, the world was changing with terrifying speed. Nazi boots marched through cobblestone streets where Freud once walked. Jewish businesses bore fresh scars of broken glass. The temperature of fear had dropped so low that neighbors stopped meeting each other's eyes. Vienna's intellectual cafes, once buzzing with philosophical debate, now whispered in hushed, paranoid tones. Frankl continued typing, his fingers moving faster now, as if racing against time itself. He was developing something profound. The idea that humans could transcend any suffering by finding meaning within it. That our last freedom, the one thing no external force could steal, was our ability to choose our attitude toward whatever fate had dealt us. His patients had already begun to heal through this approach, discovering purpose even in their darkest moments. The young doctor paused, listening to distant sirens wailing through the night air. He touched the completed sections of his life's work, feeling the texture of each page that contained years of careful observation and revolutionary insight. This manuscript would change how the world understood human resilience, he was certain of it. He had no way of knowing that within months, everything, his practice, his freedom, his family, and yes, even this precious manuscript, would be ripped away. What came next would test whether his beautiful theories about meaning could survive the unthinkable. The cattle car doors slammed shut with a metallic finality that would echo in Viktor Frankl's memory forever. September 1942. The air inside was thick with human fear and the acrid smell of unwashed bodies pressed impossibly close together. Through the narrow slats, he caught glimpses of Austrian countryside rolling past, fields he would never see the same way again. His hands instinctively reached for the inner pocket of his coat where his life's work had been carefully sewn into the lining. The manuscript, every page of his revolutionary ideas about meaning and human resilience, traveled with him like a hidden heartbeat. He could feel its presence against his chest, a fragile connection to the man he had been just days before. The train's rhythmic clacking seemed to mock the careful theories he had constructed in his comfortable Vienna office. Around him, fellow passengers wept silently, or stared into a void that stretched far beyond the cattle car's confines. The temperature dropped with each passing hour, and with it, the last pretenses of the civilized world they had known. When the doors finally opened at Theresienstadt, the first thing that struck him was the sound. Guards shouting commands in harsh German, dogs barking, the shuffle of hundreds of feet moving in terrified unison. Then came the ritual of stripping away. Clothes, possessions, identity papers, wedding rings, each item torn from them like pieces of their former selves. But it was when the guard's hands found his manuscript, those precious pages containing years of careful research, that something inside Frankl shattered and reformed simultaneously. He watched his life's work disappear into a pile of confiscated belongings, the pages fluttering briefly in the cold wind before being trampled underfoot. The theories about finding meaning in suffering were about to face their ultimate test. Standing naked in the freezing air, assigned a number instead of his name, Viktor Frankl faced a choice that would define everything that followed. In this moment of complete dehumanization, would his own ideas about inner freedom prove to be mere academic abstractions or something far more powerful? The worst was yet to come.
The bread ration weighed no more than a child's fist, yet Viktor Frankl held it as if it contained the substance of life itself. Around him in the barracks, skeletal figures moved through their morning rituals, the careful folding of threadbare blankets, the inspection of wooden clogs worn smooth by countless desperate steps. The smell of unwashed humanity mixed with the acrid smoke that perpetually drifted from the camp's chimneys. It was here, in Block 6 of Auschwitz, that Frankl faced what he would later call the ultimate test of human spirit. His father had died of pneumonia in Theresienstadt. His mother and brother had vanished into the systematic machinery of extermination. His wife, Tilly, remained somewhere in the vast network of camps. Alive or dead, he could not know. Even his professional identity had been stripped away. The hands that once wrote prescriptions now hauled stones and dug ditches until they bled. Thank you for staying with me until this point. Your attention honors the weight of this story. But something remarkable was happening in the darkest corner of human experience. Frankl began to notice that those who survived longest were not necessarily the physically strongest, but those who maintained what he called the last of human freedoms, the ability to choose their attitude toward their suffering. In the frozen pre-dawn hours, as prisoners lined up for roll call, he observed acts of quiet dignity that defied every attempt at dehumanization. A man sharing his meager soup with someone weaker, another prisoner secretly teaching philosophy to younger inmates, small gestures of care that seemed to create an invisible sanctuary where the human spirit could not be touched. Frankl realized he was witnessing his theories about meaning not just surviving, but being reborn in the most unlikely laboratory imaginable. Standing in the camp courtyard one morning, watching the sun rise over the barbed wire, something crystallized in his mind. The manuscript was gone, but the ideas, refined now by unimaginable suffering, were more alive than ever. He began to reconstruct his work, not on paper, but in the living laboratory of human endurance.
Liberation came not with trumpets, but with the strange silence of abandoned guard towers. April 1945. Viktor Frankl stood at the gates of Turkheim, weighing barely 90 pounds, his body a map of survival etched in bone and sinew. The taste of real bread seemed foreign on his tongue after years of sawdust substitutes, yet his mind burned with an intensity that starvation could never touch. Vienna welcomed him back as a ghost, returning to a world that no longer existed. His apartment had been looted, his practice dissolved, his family erased from the earth. He walked through familiar streets that felt like archaeological ruins, each corner whispering memories of a life that seemed to belong to someone else entirely. The sound of his footsteps echoed differently now, lighter in body, heavier in purpose. But something extraordinary was stirring within him. In a small room overlooking the Danube, Frankl sat before a borrowed typewriter and began what seemed impossible, reconstructing his life's work from memory alone. His fingers moved across the keys with urgent precision, as if taking dictation from the deepest wells of human experience. The theories he had once written in academic comfort now flowed onto paper, seasoned by unthinkable testing. The new manuscript was different. Where once he had written about meaning as an abstract concept, now every word carried the weight of lived truth. He wrote about prisoners who found purpose in helping others, about the power of imagining reunion with loved ones, about how even in the face of certain death, humans could choose dignity over despair. Each page hummed with authenticity that no theoretical framework could have provided. Word spread through Vienna's rebuilt intellectual community like wildfire. This young psychiatrist had returned from hell with more than survival stories. He had brought back a roadmap for human resilience. Universities began inviting him to speak. Publishers knocked on his door. Fellow survivors recognized their own experiences reflected in his revolutionary approach to healing. The boy who had once dreamed of changing psychology had become a man who would transform how humanity understood its own capacity for transcendence. But his greatest impact was yet to unfold.
The auditorium in Harvard fell silent as Viktor Frankl stepped to the podium. 1963. 2 decades had passed since liberation, and the frail survivor had become something unexpected, a beacon of hope for millions seeking purpose in an increasingly complex world. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, sat on nightstands from Boston to Tokyo, translated into dozens of languages, its pages dog-eared by readers desperate to understand how suffering could become a pathway to significance. Behind wire-rimmed glasses that had witnessed humanity's darkest chapter, his eyes sparkled with something that transcended mere survival. As he spoke about logotherapy, his method of healing through meaning, the audience leaned forward, hungry for the wisdom that only emerges from the deepest furnaces of human experience. The sound of scribbling pens filled the hall as students and professors alike tried to capture insights forged in the unlikeliest laboratory imaginable. Letters arrived daily from around the world. A businessman in Detroit found new purpose after reading about Frankl's concentration camp revelations. A mother in Sao Paulo discovered meaning in caring for her disabled child. Veterans from Vietnam, Korea, and beyond found in his words a framework for transforming their trauma into wisdom. Each life touched became part of an ever-expanding testament to the indestructible nature of human dignity. The manuscript that had been trampled in the mud of Auschwitz had risen like a phoenix, reaching further than its original author had ever dared dream. Logotherapy centers opened across continents. Therapists trained in Frankl's methods helped countless individuals discover that even in life's most challenging circumstances, meaning remained available to those brave enough to seek it. As Frankl aged, his message only grew more powerful. The young psychiatrist who had once typed alone in his Vienna apartment had become living proof that purpose could emerge from the ashes of unimaginable loss. His legacy represented the ultimate moral victory, not just surviving evil, but transforming it into a force for healing the world. Thank you for joining me on this profound journey through one man's transformation of suffering into wisdom. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and share it with others who might need to hear that meaning can be found even in the darkest moments. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss these explorations of human resilience. I'd love to hear your suggestions for future stories about individuals who found purpose rising from the ruins of tragedy. Next, we uncover another life where meaning rose from the ruins of tragedy.